Welcome to the Work the System podcast, where we help entrepreneurs make more and work less using systems. And I'm your host, Josh Fonger. And today we have a special guest, Barbara Turley. Barbara is an investor, entrepreneur, and founder and CEO of the Virtual Hub, a business she started by accident that exploded in the space of 12 months to become one of the leading companies that recruits, trains, and manages virtual assistants for businesses who need to free up time and energy so they can go to the next level. With a strong focus on customized training and ongoing career development, Barbara ensures that her team is trained in cutting-edge programs like HubSpot, Entreport, and other ones to best meet the client's unique needs in digital marketing, social media, personal assistant services, and administrative support. All right, Barbara, I'm very excited to have a chance to meet you and talk with you about your virtual assistant company because I myself am looking for one. So before we get into the details of how that happens, why don't you tell us about Virtual Hub and how you got started in this business?
Sure, Josh. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And it's great to talk to a coach who's coaching clients actively on systemization and delegation. So that's one of the key things I talk about as well. So to give you a bit of backstory, it's quite an interesting story, actually. It is literally the most accidental business and probably the most successful one that I've ever done. And there's a lesson in that in itself. I was in corporate for about 15 years. I worked in investment banking. I was an equity trader for 10 years. So I was in a very different world. You would sort of think running a people business like this, I would have a background in HR and recruiting and headhunting. None of the above. Didn't even have a background in running teams, to be totally honest. Had always done roles that were very corporate, running by myself, trading, then moved into asset management sales. So I did a sales role for about 5 years. And then I got an opportunity. My first foray into entrepreneurship, I guess, was I always wanted to build my own company, but I just didn't know what or how to leave corporate or any of these things that many corporate people face. Mm-hmm. And I got an opportunity to join a group of people who were doing a management buyout during the big financial crisis of 2008. Mm-hmm. And essentially, look, I mean, I just hopped on the coattails of it, really, but I got a chance to become a shareholder in an asset management firm. It was a buyout that a group of us did from Deutsche Asset Management in Australia. And look, it was a bit of a shaky startup in the beginning. And I spent 5 years there working there. And I learned an incredible amount about how great companies get built. And today I'm still part of that company. I'm not an employee there anymore. Mm-hmm. But it really whetted my appetite for looking at growing my own company. So I left that and I started doing some business coaching, which a lot of ex-corporates do, consulting. And over time, I was coaching businesses from like a swim school to a legal firm, like very diverse businesses, even an online coach. I had all breadth of sort of clients. But I noticed they were all pretty small and they all had the same problem, regardless of what they were doing. And that was that they couldn't afford to hire staff. But if they didn't hire staff, they were never going to get out of that sort of crevice between startup and growth. Some of these businesses were already running 10 years like this and, exhausted entrepreneurs, all the things that you're probably seeing. And look, I had read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek like everybody else at the time. I had gotten myself a virtual assistant in the Philippines to help in my business. For me, it was a no-brainer. So I started recruiting virtual assistants in the Philippines just to help clients out. It wasn't actually a business at all. It was purely like, look, let me get you one of these and we'll free up your time so we can work more together. And what started to happen over time, actually pretty quickly, like a few weeks, was I was getting more phone calls for, can you get me one of those VAs than I was for, can you be my business coach? So I started thinking, I think there's a business in this. And I realized that that was the first kind of iteration of it, that people didn't have time to do it themselves. And then what came from that, honestly, it was a bit of a disaster in the beginning. I mean, I did a lot of sales, but all of them, bar about 2, I think, failed miserably. And I realized that the real problem was that you can't just throw a body at the problem. Basically, you have to, the people I was now recruiting for, I wasn't coaching them, so they didn't know how to delegate. They didn't have systems in their business, and they thought that the panacea was to just get a cheap staff member offshore and never speak to them. And I was like, okay. So the business today, it's 4.5 years old now. We now have 150 staff in the Philippines, so it's grown quite dramatically.
Wow.
But we specialize heavily in training the client on the way in. Not as deeply as you guys would do, but we do a little bit. And we deeply train the virtual assistants on the other side. So our focus is not around just churning through, like recruiting tons of VAs and getting clients and filling seats. It's about getting success and making sure that client-VA relationship is successful on both sides. So the VA also has a dynamic career. And also we want to see our clients grow, and they typically start to grow their teams with us. So we have several clients now that have 4, 5, 6 team members within our business, and they have offshored successfully large parts of their operations. So that's kind of that's the quick and dirty version of the 4.5 year experience of where it started. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and I think you are totally right that you can't just put a body at a problem. You actually have to be effective with the body you bring on board, because there's a lot of variability in a person. So let's try to explore that a little while. So if you are going to bring on a virtual assistant, and a lot of my clients, I recommend that they do, what is the way to effectively to work with them effectively?
Sure. So there's a couple of key things. So number one, let's just park over to the side the whole recruitment HR minefield, right? Because that is a whole section all by itself. But if you're a small to medium, look, even large businesses do this, but the reality is that you are going to waste time, energy, and money, like 100% guaranteed will waste time, energy, and money if your business is not set up before or simultaneously to hiring someone. And that goes for virtual assistants in the Philippines or an MBA, graduate in the US who you think is just going to come in, and somebody can come in and just take over your business. But then all the IP tends to sit with them, and then you're kind of held ransom when they leave, and they take all the IP with them. So the key to getting any of this right, and particularly with an offshore team of virtual assistants, is you have to you have to systemize your business. You have to have a good understanding of what tasks, right down to the task level, within each little department within your business. Even if you're just a solopreneur, everyone has like marketing department, sales, finance, etc. And you're going to be very clear on what it is you're going to be, what needs to be done, what parts of it you're going to delegate, what parts of it you absolutely need to do. And then the bits you're going to delegate, you need to develop a process for how that's done in your business, because otherwise you're expecting someone else to just walk in and know what it is that you want done. And that happens all the time. And then you need to train the person effectively and onboard them effectively into your business. So that's a kind of a very broad overview of the little segments that you need to think about before you go wild hiring VAs or it's just, otherwise you will waste money. VA can help you with it as long as you're clear that they're coming in to help you, but you're leading. They're not going to do it for you.
Well, then let's pull up. Maybe this is a complicated situation, but it's a real one. So sure. For right now, so for me, I want to grow my YouTube channel. It's a new channel we just started. We're putting these podcasts up there. Essentially, no one even knows it exists. It's like brand new. So if I wanted to hire a VA, and I personally don't have a process to grow the YouTube channel, do you have people who are trained in growing certain channels like that, or is that something that I'd actually have to go out, figure out, write a process, and then bring someone on? Or how would that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So 99% of businesses out there trying to recruit VAs online have this same problem. They'll say, I want to grow my LinkedIn, or it's very specific. And, VAs know a lot about the platforms, even the freelance ones online. But in terms of growing it, like we have, and this is something I developed, like I realized that clients don't have time they don't have time or expertise to create these processes themselves. So how we help clients out, shameless plug for the virtual hub, but we've built our own SOPs, process maps for specific things within the digital marketing space, so that we get a client, like you're never going to know a client's business inside out. So you still have to kind of do a bit yourself, but we're like, just take our process maps. If you don't have your own, take ours, and our VAs are trained on those processes. So let's go back to YouTube for a second. I've got a team of master trainers and myself, because I like doing this, but we take all the big trainings. So like we're big into HubSpot Academy, digital marketer in the US. We use a lot of their trainings, and we look at them and then we rebuild those training programs for VAs specifically and turn them into SOPs. Because you can't just throw a training program at a VA really and expect them to turn it into an SOP. It's difficult. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of the heavy lifting with that. So with your YouTube channel, we'll have the process for all of that. But you probably will, it's still advisable to you've got to have some sort of reporting back mechanism, and sometimes it'll grow, sometimes it won't. Like, with social media, you can follow all the steps, and you might get no traction because the content is rubbish. So sometimes people blame the VA. We're like, yeah, but I don't know why it's not working. Maybe, I don't know, you should change your pitch or something. So yes, VAs can definitely help with the grunt work, but you have to kind of lead the process and understand the bit that you need to do. And you can, though, here's a great strategy. It's called the high-low strategy. You can hire a consultant, very minimal amount of time, because you've got a VA doing all the work. You can have the consultant just come in every now and then, and you can say, like, what am I doing wrong? What are we doing wrong here? And they can do like an hour of time. You pay for that. And then you're not paying someone huge fees to manage the whole thing for you. You can just hire a social media strategist for a bit of time per month, maybe. That's a great strategy because you get both then together. I always recommend that. I'm like, don't forget the strategists are really important too, but you don't have to pay for all their time for them to implement.
That's so interesting. It's breaking apart, because it used to be where you had to have somebody who could do it all, the strategy and the project management and the implementation. And now you can actually slice those pieces, a couple hours of strategy, a couple hours of implementation, you yourself are going to manage, and get a lot more done. That's interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. Because these days, you can pay agencies to do all this stuff, but any small business, at the end of the day, it's about your bottom line, and it is more expensive to do it that way. Would you get faster results? Some people argue you do. I'm not sure. If you've got a good enough strategist and you have a strong enough process, a VA can implement for you, and they do the implementation, the doing. But you've got to direct them. Someone's got to direct them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope that makes sense. Yeah.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I think that's what you've done is difficult to do. And most people are like, hey, here's a VA, good luck. But you've actually gone through and done the hard work of building some processes, which I love, which actually means that they're going to have something to follow and do for you. Because that is the tough thing, is a lot of times owners, they want a result, but they don't necessarily know what the process is. So they can't effectively train something they don't know. That's
where we really specialize. It's kind of where we come in, but we still see issues, so I've realized recently this high-low strategy is something I'm now looking at, going, well, maybe we can provide that like as an extra service. We say, well, we also have a team of strategists that can step in, and actually drive the strategy with you, with your VA. We have not built that yet, but that's kind of I'm seeing that's the next problem, as like, when you solve for one problem as a business owner, the next problem raises its ugly head. And you're like, oh no, damn, we got to solve that one next. But that's how you grow a business, though. That's how you grow a great business. Yeah.
If you're solving challenging problems, then you're going to always have a business, because people are going to need that help. Well, that's very cool. So let's say we have the typical business owner. What are some normal things that people really should be outsourcing? We use the YouTube example, but what are some other things that a normal company really should be looking at a VA to do?
Sure. So the most simple things, let's just look at basic admin, right? So in any business, there's things like creating invoices. There's all the small little tedious things, even answering the phone. Like, we've got loads of VAs that answer the phone for their clients from the Philippines, right? And their English, their English is perfect. They sound great on the phone. All of those things that owners believe that can't be done. I always say start with the simplest things. So, even calendar management or managing some parts of your email. Now, email, people think it's a simple thing to outsource. It's actually the hardest one. But, your customer support stuff, we have a process for that, so we can help. But that sort of lower end, kind of easy to do stuff is great. But let's look at the digital end as well. Lots of clients we deal with are doing podcasts and YouTube channels and all this sort of stuff. And as you know, the amount of work involved in getting a podcast, it's not just the recording. That's probably 20% of the job. The rest of it is all the stuff around that. Mm-hmm. I have a podcast too, shameless plug for the Virtual Success Show. The only thing I do is show up and record and drop it in Dropbox. And we have an entire process that happens thereafter, which everything gets done, distribution, it gets repurposed, it gets split out across social media, and our VA teams do that. So that's what they do, all the grunt work. But I lead that. I tell them, like, here's the process. We train them on it, and then we kind of get them to report back to us and we go, okay, that bit's not working. Let's change the process here. Yeah. So in digital things like social media, calendars, so creating content to keep consistency across your social media. Now, these days, social media is moving very heavily towards video and Facebook Lives and stuff like that. But you can still supplement that stuff with repurposed content, blogs, other types of content that a VA can gather for you and put together and get it out on Hootsuite or whatever it is you're using. Mm-hmm. Blogging is the same. Let's say you've got a great writer. I don't recommend VAs write. They're not writers. Mm-hmm. But let's say you're a great writer or you have a great writer or you've got great video. Like, what a VA can do is make sure that looks beautiful on your website, has images attached, is reasonably optimized for SEO. They're not SEO experts, but they can make sure that the alt text on the images, all that sort of thing. They can get a video transcribed and turn it into an infographic, couple of points, things like that. So in the digital space, there's just so much to do that if you have the right processes, VAs can do so much for you. Google Analytics reporting, all these kinds of things. So I'm thinking of the average owner who's listening to this and they've probably never outsourced before. And so their concern would be, can I trust them? Are they going to destroy my website, my brand? Like, is there any kind of tracking or a way that you kind of protect people who are afraid to make that jump to VA? Yeah, absolutely. So it is a very legitimate concern. So let's talk about the elephant in the room for a second. The online freelancer VA working from home somewhere in the Philippines who says they're working, but then you never see any output. They're never there when they're supposed to be there. They bill you for 10 hours of work and there was about a half an hour done. All of that, right? That's all real, right? That stuff happens all the time. I've had it, clients have had it. And part of my struggle with the virtual hub and building it was navigating a lot of those, I call that the management part. So they might have the skill, but how do you trust them? So at the virtual hub, obviously we've dealt with that because we're now completely office-based. We are GDPR compliant, for example, which is the big data protection compliance stuff going on in Europe. We make sure people show up on time. We've got time trackers. We've got team leaders and success coaches watching what's actually happening. And we're coaching all the time. So we're not policing people. We're actually recruiting great people that are really enthusiastic about what it is we do. Mm-hmm. But let's look at the other end of the spectrum. Let's say that you are hiring someone on Upwork. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I recommend, and people don't like this, but if you're going to go on Upwork and get a VA in the Philippines, you've got to make sure that maybe give them a VPN to access your stuff. Maybe use something like Time Doctor, which is a screen tracker, or HubSpot is a great one. It actually captures their screen every 2 to 5 minutes while they're doing a task for you. Now that feels like you're policing them and they probably will be resistant to it. But it is actually, if you pitch it right, it's a productivity tool. So you got to make sure that, first of all, whatever they're executing for you, that they know how to do it. So if you watch them doing it, that's the best way to train, is to go, oh, look, I saw you doing this bit. It's not great. Why don't you do it this way? Be quicker, So it's all how you pitch it. The reality is people working virtually, there are loads of tools out there. You can track them, or if you hire someone for 20 hours a week, let's say, you need to know the length of time, the task list that you are delegating, how long it should sort of take. Mm-hmm. And my advice is fill their time and don't allow too much flexibility, which is kind of going against the big HR stuff out there right now. But you can allow flexibility within a structure. But a big mistake I see people making is they say to their VA, look, as long as you get me results, I don't mind when you do the work. What's going to happen then in the Philippines is that you've got someone doing the work at 3 o'clock in the morning with a baby on their hip because they're working another job all day long. And that's kind of a cult, you might fall into that trap. And then they're tired, mistakes are happening, they're not concentrating. They're telling you they're doing it during the day, but they're actually not, because you haven't put any structure on them. So that's been my experience. So I just always advise people to be a bit more, don't be too freewheeling about it, and don't be afraid to put a little bit of structure around how you want things done.
Okay. So it's not like there are some tools to use and some protections you want to put in place, and actually just don't hope it's going to work, because it's a risky situation.
Yeah, look, destroying your website, I think the trick with websites, if you're using WordPress, for example, which most people these days are, a rule we have internally is anything that requires FTP access is a no for virtual assistants, right? Because that's code, that's in the code, right? So you're going into a section of the website that really needs a developer. Mm-hmm. Widgets and stuff is kind of easily fixable if it goes wrong. There's not a whole lot you can really destroy if you're just in the admin sort of editor section. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and using LastPass. Sorry, that's another tool, vital. LastPass for your password protection.
Okay. So
never sharing your passwords openly. You can, through LastPass, you can share access to tools without ever sharing the password. So it means if somebody goes rogue on you, all you do is cut them out of LastPass and everything's protected.
Okay.
So those are things we make clients do, but the concerns are legitimate. That's the thing.
I'm guessing there's a lot of stories behind how you've learned these things. I mean, what can you,
4.5 years of gray hair.
Are there a few horror stories you've had to overcome, and maybe that'd be an interesting story as an entrepreneur, that what you've learned, because you've scaled quite quickly, and most people don't do that. So what have been some kind of lessons you've learned about growing as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So growing as an entrepreneur, so many. I mean, honestly, people look at it now and go, wow, that's so successful. I go, yeah, but you didn't see the long days of like angst. Really, I'm in a people business, and entrepreneurship is really hard. Like it's excruciating actually, but the highs are very high and the lows are very low. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think navigating the emotional roller coaster has been something that has challenged me more than anything else that I've ever done. And I'm always very open talking about that. I also I have a 2.5-year-old, and I'm expecting another baby in 2 months' time. So I've also navigated motherhood at the same time. Total lunacy. But I'm a good delegator, right? So the key things I've learned, you have to get very good at delegation, regardless of whether you have kids or not, right? Delegation. You will not build a scalable business unless you learn to delegate effectively, build systems and automations and all this great stuff that you talk about effectively. And then once you start to scale, like the issues you'll start to face are then when you get a bigger team or a bigger business, leadership, regardless of how big your team is, leadership of self, leadership of the market that you're going after, leadership becomes the biggest thing that you have to work on, to be honest, because once you get over about 7 people reporting to you, or let's say 5, even if you've got 5 VAs, next you become a project manager. Now you're managing all these people. And then when you start to get bigger again, like I've got 150 employees, so I have to have a huge org chart of people that help me with that. So navigating all of their needs and becoming a mentor to all of them and growing them has been huge lessons for me, but rewarding, but challenging. Yeah.
So the growth of the business is going to be definitely bottlenecked if you don't grow as a leader. Sounds like that's kind of
100%. Yeah. Because I see people hiring and firing. You get annoyed, right? People do things wrong consistently, and you're like, damn it, just get rid of them and hire a new person. The new person fails again. Just, you can't get into that because it's very challenging. You'll never grow unless you look at yourself first. When things are going wrong, look at yourself first. How are you dealing with it? Then look at your processes, and maybe you need to tweak, because processes and systems need to evolve as you grow. Like the process you said a year ago is going to be rubbish today because your business has changed. And then training your people. And then the final step is shoot the messenger. You know what I mean? Like, so if it's still all not working, well, then look at the person, because maybe it could be your HR systems, your management of them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not skilled enough for the role. They could be a great person, but they're just not able to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's key, you know, for me anyway, with this business.
Wow. Well, it's amazing you're able to go through all those phases of leadership in such a short period of time, because with each phase of leadership, there are fears to overcome, things to learn, mistakes that are going to definitely be made along the way.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
so that's pretty amazing. That's great. I think hopefully for those listening, I didn't tell her what to say, but she said it right here, you know, learning to build systems so that you can delegate, so that you can free. And this is a perfect example of what that can do. Because obviously you couldn't go anywhere if you couldn't delegate and you didn't have systems. I mean, it'd be a nightmare. I mean, 100 plus people without systems, you'd be
Oh, you wouldn't know what was going on. Yeah. And look, the people are happier. I find the more systems we bring in and the more SOPs we build and the more training we do, actually our people are just so much happier, you know, because they love the collaboration and and the final thing, I think the last year I've spent a lot of time working on culture. So for example, and this applies more to people with larger teams than someone with just one VA, but technically you can sort of build the same thing. But what I've noticed is we all focus on our client, on our brand, right? And the brand usually means the brand the client sees. So the global thing that you're presenting. Mm-hmm. But as you grow your team, you realize that you actually have an internal or another market called your employee brand. Mm-hmm. Now, in order for me to deliver effectively for clients, I need great people. So something I realized about 2 years ago was, wow, we need to have like an entire employee brand in the Philippines that is completely separate, with its own personas, its own marketing, its own everything. It's like a whole separate business that is attracting the type of people that we want in our culture. And I've worked very hard on building that. And then when they come in, they've got to see that culture alive, right? So, and that's something that I have to say has been thoroughly enjoyable for me. I've really enjoyed building a culture. I never knew how to do it, but you just have to I'm very invested in it. So we have this twofold mission now, mm-hmm. where we want to have we have a brand promise to our clients and we have a brand promise to our employees, mm-hmm. and our people. And those promises are actually different, but they have to work together. So that's been another massive lesson of realizing the bigger you grow, the more you've got this separate brand. And if you don't focus on that, your employment, your client brand will suffer because the client success will be lower.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Wow. Well, great lessons. And thank you for packing in that wisdom, you know, what you learned in 4 years with that massive growth. And investing in your people is not a waste, and it's going to translate into your client work. And I hadn't thought about that one, like an internal brand and an external brand. They got to be congruent and aligned strategically. You can't think of your people as just cogs in a wheel. They are really.
No. Well, you'll get more clients. Like what happened to us was, I didn't really realize this, but what actually a great byproduct of that was that without even asking, like we get so many of our clients referring. Because, you know, I was listening recently to, I was on the live stream of the Traffic and Conversion Conference that happened recently in the States. And one of the big talking points was that happy customers don't actually refer. Like happy customers are like, yeah, I'm really happy. Successful customers end up accidentally referring people because people will say, oh my God, like, how did you do that? And they have no choice but to say, well, I heard this great company that does this for me. And they accidentally drive a lot of business to you. And I noticed that by focusing on success, and the only way I can get success really for our clients, well, there's lots of ways, but part of the puzzle is getting great people who are well trained, who have a good culture, who deliver on our brand promise to the client. And that drives success as much as anything else. So that's been a huge kind of accidental lesson for me recently that I've noticed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm putting more energy. I'm actually putting more investment right now and resourcing into the Philippines. Like I'm going to try and brand up our offices beautifully and build like workspace. Like I'm really excited about it now because I've realized how powerful that is.
And I like this idea of accidentally referring because of the result, not just because they like you, because they're getting that result. And so, Well, very cool. Well, I wish we could talk longer, but is there anything I forgot to ask you about, or a question that you wish I would have asked you, something you want to leave the audience with before we head out?
Yeah, so what I'd just like to leave the audience with is that, in my opinion, I am talking my own book, but I believe this regardless of being in the business that I'm in. Every business today, staffing and people and systems and automation can take over a lot, but you build your systems and then people run your systems. You can hire people, costs are becoming difficult in every Western country, US. I mean, I know, rates are low, whatever, for minimum wage or whatever, but you need to think about an offshore strategy. It is worthwhile to think about countries like the Philippines to build your offshore team. And that's not to say that you're taking jobs out of the US or Australia. A lot of people feel guilty about that. What you're doing is you're saying, well, we can build an offshore team to deal with a certain part of the operational part of our business, to drive our costs lower, but they're getting paid great. So don't feel like you're sort of using the Philippines or anything. You're creating jobs there. And then your own people that you have in the US, what you'll find is your business will grow, you'll have more money to reinvest, and you will start hiring salespeople in your own country. You'll start hiring other types of roles. You'll promote your own people out of the trenches and up into the more revenue generating roles within your business. And that, for me, that's the beautiful strategy of how to use this effectively. So not just talking about one VA, but even with one VA, you can do that. You might end up with a salesperson in America. So this is the way to think about it. And what you're actually doing is you're growing your business, you're freeing up your time, but you're also creating jobs in an economy like the Philippines, and actually jobs and revenue in your own country. Mm-hmm. And that's what drives economies forward. That's actually how you need to think about this. It's almost like no-brainer strategy for me, if you get it right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, very cool. Where can people find out more about the Virtual Hub and what you do?
Sure. So we've got a special link for your listeners. I just want to make sure I get the right link here. It's the virtualhub.com/work the system. Okay. And on there, you can get work the system. We've got a free mini guide. You don't even need to sign up for it. It's the 5 reasons people fail with VAs. So that's really key because it helps you not to do those things before you hire one. There's also a 7-part, it's just like a mini e-course on a lot of the things I've been talking about, how to scale your business using offshore staff. And then for anyone who feels they're ready to talk to one of our outsourcing strategy consultants, you can have a free call. You can book it there, and they will help you to ascertain whether we would be a good fit for you, whether you're ready. Because we don't take everyone on those calls. It's not a sales call. It's more like a, we don't want you to waste your time and money. So we're there to sort of help you navigate what to do next. Yeah. So you can book a call there. We do have a minimum of 20 hours a week though. We do part-time and full-time staff. So we're more like a dedicated staffing solution as opposed to, I need a VA for 2 hours a week, that sort of thing. We don't dabble in that area at this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For those who are serious and are serious about growing the business, then this would be the place to go.
Sure.
Yeah, well, good. All right. Well, again, thank you to the audience for joining us today. And thank you, Barbara, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom about how you grew your own business, but basically how others can grow their business by finding more VAs, trained VAs to help them out with the standard business operations of a normal business. So that was very useful. And everybody tune in next week. I'm going to be sharing with you another podcast from another business expert. I like Barbara or a previous client, and they'll be sharing with you ways, resources, tips, tricks, so that you can make more and work less with systems. And also, if you're interested in getting a copy of that book right behind me, Sam Carpenter's best-selling book, Work the System, then make sure to leave us a review on either iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, any of those places. Leave us a comment or review, and then share it with us at info@workthesystem.com. Just shoot us an email, let us know, and we'll be pulling out one of those reviews a week and mailing you a copy of Sam's latest book. All right, everybody, I'll catch you next week.